Hello everyone, Cindy here with Monarch Mom DIY. Excited to be bringing you these 3 DIYs using Dollar Tree wood blanks. For DIY number 1, we're going to use 2 of these circle shiplap shapes, some half beads, and some tumbling tower blocks. So the first thing I'm going to do from both of these MDF circles is I'm going to remove the hangers, and we are going to make a cute little shelf with these circles. Now, if you don't have half beads, you can use these little mushroom caps you can find at hardware stores, but I had some of these smaller, I would guess these are about 1/2 inch, it says 12 millimeter, little half beads from Temu, and I'm just going to see if I have enough to go all the way around one of my circles. It looks like I didn't have quite enough to go all the way around having them touching, so that's not a big deal. I will just, as I glue them, I will leave the tiniest little space between each of my beads here. So I'm just going to use wood glue, and I am going to make sure I cover up the 2 holes that were holding the jute twine, and I'm just going to go around and glue these down, trying to keep them evenly spaced all the way around the outer edge of one of my circles. While that's drying, I'm going to come to my second circle, and I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue to fill in these holes. I'm going to try to cover them up, but if that doesn't happen, I want to, at least when I paint them, have it try to be an even surface. You can also do wood filler. You can do some of the Dollar Tree spackle if you'd like, but I was just wanting to be quick with this, so I'm just using some hot glue. Once everything was dry and pretty much sanded smooth, I am going to use white chalk paint, and I'm going to cover the top edge that you see here facing you of both of my circles, and also the side edge. You can see I'm trying to get a little extra paint into those holes that I've filled in with hot glue to try and make them as inconspicuous as possible. But like I said, I am going to paint my 2 circles with white. For the feet of my shelving unit, I am using 8 tumbling tower blocks. I have made 4 sets of 2 that I've glued them together like sandwich cookies, and then I am gluing them at the 4 corners basically of our circular shape here, and I am able to cover up the holes. Not that it really matters on the bottom, but this is what the bottom of my shelving unit is going to look like. I'm going to use wood glue and then let those sit until they are securely, firmly glued to the bottom. Now, this was my second option. At first, I was trying to make towers of tumbling tower blocks, and they weren't staying glued together. I think it's because they're these brown painted ones that I'm trying to use up. So for between the 2 circles, I am making 2 stacks of 20 tumbling tower blocks. You can see I'm gluing them together on the larger side, so they're going to be stacked kind of like, I don't know, dominoes or a big long sandwich cookie, and I'm just putting wood glue between all of them, maybe in 3 or 4 sections, and then we're going to make sure that when they're glued together, they're going to be as straight as possible. I found that using the flat front or back side of the blocks is going to give you the straightest leg for your shelves. So like I said, I'm making 2 sets of these that are 20 blocks. You can make them as big or as small as you want. This is just about 6 or 7 inches, and that's about the space I wanted between my top and bottom shelves. So once those sets of 20 were dry, I did sand them a little bit just to give them some distressing, and then also to get any glue that maybe seeped through. I am only doing 2 legs because they're wider. I felt like I really didn't need 3 or 4. I wanted to be able to put things in and out of the shelf. So you can see from the top down here, I'm going to put those 2 legs or spacers evenly across from each other with wood glue and let those dry. Once those were dried completely, I'm going to put a little bit more wood glue on top of those towers and place my beaded circle, my top shelf, on there, and I'm just kind of making sure that I have it centered how I want it so that the wood glue will dry. And I am going to just place something on top here just to give a little bit of pressure to press it down into that glue. And here's the finished shelf. I love how it turned out, just using a couple of these circles from Dollar Tree, as well as some of those brown tumbling tower blocks that sometimes are hard to find things to make with when you don't want to paint them. For DIY number 2, we're going to use this rectangular sign from Dollar Tree, as well as the laser cut word love. I'm also going to use some tissue paper from Melanie at Christian Craft Paper. I will put the link for it in the description box. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm going around with Moss Waverly chalk paint, and I'm just painting the frame of our sign. I did paint the top and the inside of the frame, and then once that was dry, I did go around and paint the outside as well. Now I am going to be painting the inside of this with white to give it a lighter colored background for the tissue paper. So I'm just going to sand away some of the extra green, and then I will tape off the frame before we paint the white. So now that I have my painter's tape around the inside edge there of the frame, I'm just going to give the background a pretty good coat of white. We are going to be Mod Podging the tissue paper on top of this, so it doesn't have to be perfect. We just want it to be a lighter color. Once our paint is dry, we'll take off the painter's tape, and then I'm taking the tissue paper. This is a large sheet, and I'm just finding the piece that I want to use for the sign and just using my fingernail to kind of crease the tissue paper so that I can then cut with scissors the piece that I want to fit in our sign. Now that I have my tissue paper to fit, I'm going to take my Mod Podge and I am going to brush a pretty good layer of this onto the white surface of our sign. We're going to spread that out, and then we're going to let it dry so that we can then come back in with our iron and iron that tissue paper on. Now you're going to see here in a second, I am going to go up onto the green frame with the Mod Podge. This is just to give it a uniform look in case I accidentally get some on there. But then we're going to just iron the tissue paper on the white surface of our sign. Now this next step is optional. You do not have to put a word. You could put some faux florals if you want. I came across this 2-pack of this really pretty wood word that says love. So I decided to paint it with pink sky. It's a little bit darker than pink cloud, kind of a, I don't know, what would you call that color? Kind of a pinkish red. So I'm going to paint this to try to match the color of the flowers on the tissue paper. And then we're going to have this dry so that we can add it to our project. Now that our Mod Podge is dry on our sign, we're going to fit our tissue paper piece in there, getting it as flat as we possibly can. Then we're going to take a piece of parchment paper to kind of be a barrier between our tissue paper and the iron, just in case some adhesive would come through. We don't want it to stick to our iron, or we don't want our iron to mess up and burn a hole into our tissue paper. So I have just a regular iron. It's set on, I believe, 3.5, 4, somewhere around there. And I'm trying to make sure to really get into the corners with the tip there and just flatten this out, reactivating the stickiness of the Mod Podge with the heat of the iron. Now that our love word is dry, it was a little dark for me, didn't quite match perfectly, but I'm still liking the color. I'm going to lighten it up with my little sander here, as well as distress the edges a little bit. Next, I was trying to figure out where I wanted to place it on the sign, and finally I decided I wanted to glue it on the bottom left corner here, but on the frame, not actually onto the tissue paper, just to give it a little bit more of a 3D effect. So I'm just going to put a little bit of this wood glue along the very bottom of the word, and then hold that down in place until it is dried completely. Now this sign does have picture hangers on the back, but I decided I wanted to add one more decorative touch by making a little beaded hanger, just using some beads that I had from Dollar Tree. This particular beaded garland has some larger and smaller beads, so I'm just going to go long enough so that I can make a nice little hanger to attach to the back of our sign. Next, taking my staple gun, I'm just going to go ahead and staple that jute twine into the MDF frame of the sign. And I really like how this sign turned out. Hopefully this inspires you to pick up some of these blank wood signs from Dollar Tree's crafting section. For our third project, we're going to use a wood crate, and one of these, it's called a wood book. It's a piece of wood that they're saying is the size and shape of a book. I have not used any of these yet, but I've seen them at quite a few Dollar Trees, so thought I would pick one up and make something with it. I'm also going to use some wood cubes. You could use tumbling tower blocks for the feet or legs as well. I did sand this lightly because it is a little rough on the edges, but I'm going to give the wood book and the wood crate a good coat of my white Waverly chalk paint. I'm also going to paint 4 cubes that are a little bit bigger than the ones from Dollar Tree. I believe mine were from Hobby Lobby. Once our 2 pieces are dry, you can see I did not paint the back side of the crate because I am going to glue this right to the bottom of the wood book. When I was at the store, these wood books did come in differing widths, so I tried to find the one that closest matched the width of the crate. So we're going to wood glue these 2 pieces together. You see I'm sitting them on the table so that they're nice and flat. Once those are dry, I might just sand and distress a little bit. This, of course, is optional. I am going to be putting some rub-on transfers on the back facing you of the book there, the part that's above the crate. So I do want to make sure that is smooth so that it takes to the rub-on transfers the best. Now, I know you can get rub-on transfers lots of different places. I fell in love with this It Is Well With My Soul, this beautiful wreath, and it fit perfectly on this project. This is also from Melanie at Christian Craft Paper. Again, I'll put the link for these in the description of the video. So you're just going to peel the backing off, which then makes the rub-on transfer like a sticker with a plastic over the front. And then as you burnish down the rub-on transfer, it will attach itself to your surface, and then you can peel off the plastic from the top. Oh my goodness, it is so, so pretty. I'm just rubbing gently to make sure everything is sealed down. You can spray this with a clear spray or go over it with Mod Podge as well. I liked these little extra flowers that were part of the sheet. I thought it would be fun to add some of these to the front of the crate to kind of bring the design onto the front as well. Now, I probably should have glued these cubes to the bottom of the crate first before gluing it to the block, but then I wouldn't have had some of the legs onto the block. So I have to kind of balance it upside down here with some things underneath to get it as flat as possible. But I'm going to take these 4 cubes that I painted white, and we're going to glue these to the 4 corners of our project. What I love most about this project is it can be decorative. You can throw some succulents or some florals in there, or it can be practical to hold your phone, your keys, or some change. Thanks again so much for joining me. Please let me know in the comments which of these projects was your favorite, and here are some other Dollar Tree DIYs you can watch next. Thanks so much and take care.